Welcome back to Science Lullaby, the place where the strange and the wondrous come to you softly, gently at whatever hour you need a voice to carry you somewhere worth going. Tonight we are going somewhere ancient, somewhere volcanic and sun-bleached, and alive with the kind of wild that the modern world rarely gets to see. We are going to the islands of Indonesia, to Komodo, to Rinca, to the rugged volcanic shores where the world's largest living lizard still roams, as it has for millions of years, unchanged, unhurried, and absolutely terrifying in the most beautiful way imaginable. The Komodo dragon. Even the name sounds like something a child made up for a story they were too afraid to finish. But it is real, utterly, extraordinarily real. And tonight, we are going to spend the next couple of hours learning 100 facts about this creature. Facts that are each more astonishing than the last, delivered slowly, warmly, like the kind of documentary you watch from under a blanket on a cool evening when the rest of the world has gone quiet. So settle in, let your body relax. Let your breathing slow down. You don't have to remember any of this. It will find its way into your dreams on its own. You are just here to listen, to let the images form in your mind, and to be genuinely, deeply amazed by an animal that has earned every ounce of its legendary reputation. Let's begin at the very beginning. Let's go back, a long, long way back. Chapter Part 1. Ancient Origins. A creature built by deep time. To understand the Komodo dragon, you have to first understand how old it is. Not just old in the sense of a grandmother or a grandfather tree. Old in the geological sense. Old in the way that makes your own lifespan feel like a single breath against the long, slow exhale of the earth. The genus Varanus, the great family of monitor lizards to which the Komodo dragon belongs, originated in Asia somewhere around 40 million years ago. 40 million years. That number is almost incomprehensible to us. 40 million years ago, the continents were still shifting into their modern positions. Horses were the size of dogs. The Himalayas were still rising. And yet somewhere in the ancient warm forests of Asia, the earliest ancestors of what would become the Komodo dragon were already stalking their prey, already flicking those long forked tongues into air that no human being would ever breathe. Fact 1. The Komodo dragon's scientific name is Varanus komodoensis, and it belongs to the family Varanidae, the monitor lizards, a lineage that stretches back approximately 40 million years to origins in Asia. Over those millions of years, the Varanid lineage spread. It migrated, diversified, and ultimately found its way into Australia. And Australia, as it turned out, was a paradise for large lizards. There were fewer competing carnivorous mammals there, particularly fewer of the large-bodied placental carnivores that dominated Africa and Eurasia. In that ecological space, the monitor lizards of Australia grew. They grew large. They grew into the role of apex predator with a completeness and a confidence that speaks to millions of years of uninterrupted success. Fact 2. Fossil evidence, including specimens unearthed in eastern Queensland, Australia, demonstrates that ancestors of the Komodo dragon lived in Australia as far back as approximately 3.8 million years ago during the early Pliocene epoch. For a long time, scientists assumed that the Komodo dragon had evolved on the Indonesian islands themselves, that it was a product of island gigantism, a well-documented phenomenon where animals evolved to enormous size when isolated on islands with few competitors. Fact 6. The closest living relative of the Komodo dragon is the Australian lace monitor, Varanus varius. Genetic analysis of mitochondrial DNA confirmed this sister-taxon relationship. Their common ancestor diverged from the lineage that gave rise to the crocodile monitor of New Guinea, meaning the Komodo dragon is in a very real biological sense a cousin of an Australian tree-climbing lizard that looks entirely unlike it. Fact 7. A 2021 genetic study revealed that during the late Miocene epoch, roughly between 5 and 11 million years ago, the ancestors of Komodo dragons had hybridized with the common ancestors of several Australian sand monitor species. Ancient genetic mixing between distant lineages, millions of years before any human being ever set foot on these islands. The Indonesian islands that the Komodo dragon eventually colonized are themselves geological newcomers in a sense. They are volcanic islands, part of the Lesser Sunda chain, formed by the immense tectonic forces that still make this part of the world one of the most seismically active regions on Earth. When sea levels dropped during ice ages, land bridges and shallow connections between islands made migration possible. When the seas rose again, populations became isolated. The dragons that reached Komodo, Rinca, Flores, and the surrounding islands found themselves cut off from their Australian relatives, left to inherit an island world that had, over time, become theirs entirely. Fact 8. Comparisons between Komodo dragon fossils from Flores Island and living Komodo dragons on that island today show that the lizard's body size has remained remarkably stable for approximately 900,000 years, a period that included the extinction of the island's megafauna, the arrival of early hominids roughly 880,000 years ago, and the arrival of modern humans around 10,000 years ago. The dragons outlasted all of it, unchanged. There is something almost mythological about that persistence. While civilizations rose and fell, while the climate shifted and changed, while other great animals of the Pleistocene vanished one by one, the Komodo dragon simply continued. It found its islands, it perfected its strategies, it endured. Fact 9. Western science first formally documented the Komodo dragon in 1912, when Dutch colonial administrator Lieutenant Stein van Hensbroek, having heard reports from local fishermen of a monstrous land crocodile on Komodo Island, sent a report and a specimen to Dr. Peter Owens, director of the Zoological Museum at Bogor in Java. Owens published the first scientific description of the species that same year. Before that formal discovery, the local people of the region had known about these creatures for generations, of course. The Manggarai people of Flores called the dragon Ora. Others called it Buaya Darat, land crocodile, or Biawak Raksasa, giant monitor. There was nothing hidden about this animal to the people who lived alongside it. It was the outside world that had simply not been paying attention. Fact 110. The 1926 expedition to Komodo Island, led by American W. Douglas Burden, who brought back 12 preserved specimens and 2 live ones, directly inspired the 1933 film King Kong. It was also Burden who coined the term Komodo dragon, the evocative name that has stuck ever since. 3 of his specimens were stuffed and are still on display today at the American Museum of Natural History in New York. So the creature that gave us King Kong is real. It lives on a handful of volcanic islands in eastern Indonesia. And right now, as you listen to this, somewhere on those islands, in the dry heat of an Indonesian afternoon, a Komodo dragon is lying in the shadow of a tree, tongue flickering, waiting. Let's look at that creature more closely. Let's understand exactly what we are looking at when we look at a Komodo dragon. Part 2. The body. Anatomy of a living monument. There are animals on Earth that are impressive in an understated way. And then there are animals that stop you completely, that make something primal and very old inside of you go quiet and still. The Komodo dragon is the second kind. From the moment you see one in person, and the few people who have done so consistently describe it as an experience that rearranges something. you understand that you are looking at something built by deep and serious evolutionary forces. Fact 11. The Komodo dragon is the largest living lizard on Earth. Adult males typically reach between 2.59 meters, about 8.5 feet in length, while adult females average around 2.29 meters, or about 7.5 feet. These are Guinness World Records figures for typical adult animals. Fact 12. The largest verified wild specimen ever recorded measured 3.04 meters, just over 10 feet in length, with a body mass of 81.5 kilograms, or about 180 pounds, not counting stomach contents. The heaviest wild individual recorded reached 87.4 kilograms. In captivity, where food is more reliably available, dragons have been recorded at larger sizes. The largest captive specimen measured 3.13 meters and weighed 166 kilograms, or 366 pounds, though this included undigested food. Let that sink in. 366 pounds of lizard standing in front of you, looking at you with amber eyes that can see movement at nearly 300 meters. This is the animal we are talking about. Fact 13. In the wild, male Komodo dragons are significantly larger than females, typically 20 to 30% larger in both length and body mass. This sexual dimorphism arises from the reality that larger males control feeding territories and gain priority access to females during breeding season. Size translates directly to reproductive success, which has reinforced larger body frames over countless generations. Fact 14. Komodo dragons have heads that are, in the words of researchers, designed like precision instruments. They are broad and flat, with rounded snouts and a jaw architecture involving multiple movable joints, including a critical structure called the intramandibular hinge that allows the lower jaw to open to an extraordinary width. This is not a jaw built for maximum crushing force. It is a jaw built for opening wide and pulling back with tremendous power, for tearing. Fact 15. The Komodo dragon's skull has been described by biomechanics researchers as a space frame structure, a lightweight, rigid lattice of interlocking struts that is relatively poorly adapted for generating high bite force, but exceptionally well adapted for resisting high pulling loads. Computer modeling using finite element analysis, the same technique engineers use to crash test cars, revealed that a Komodo dragon's bite force is actually quite weak relative to its size. In a direct comparison with a saltwater crocodile of similar dimensions, the crocodile generated roughly 252 newtons of force with its bite, while the Komodo dragon managed only around 39 newtons. But this apparent weakness is actually the key to understanding how the dragon kills.
Fact 16. The Komodo dragon has approximately 60 serrated teeth at any given time, each measuring up to 2.5 centimeters, about 1 inch in length. These teeth are pleurodont, meaning they are not set into sockets the way human teeth are, but are instead attached to the inner side of the jawbone. They are also frequently replaced throughout the dragon's life, making them functionally similar to shark teeth, endlessly renewable cutting instruments. A single Komodo dragon may cycle through 4 or 5 complete sets of teeth over its lifetime. Fact 17. In 2024, researchers published a remarkable finding. The serrated edges of Komodo dragon teeth are tipped with iron. Specifically, a reddish iron mineral called jarosite coats the tips and edges of each tooth, giving them both their characteristic color and a level of sharpness that is maintained and even enhanced through the process of eating. The iron-reinforced serrations are partly what makes these teeth so devastatingly effective at tearing through flesh, hide, and even bone. Iron teeth. Let that settle in for a moment. A lizard with iron teeth. Fact 18. The Komodo dragon's tongue is yellow and deeply forked. Forked more dramatically, in fact, than even a snake's tongue. It is long enough to extend well beyond the snout and is used in a continuous, rapid flicking motion as the animal moves through its environment. This tongue is not used for tasting in the way we typically think of tasting. It is a chemosensory instrument of extraordinary precision, which we will return to in detail when we discuss hunting. Fact 19. The skin of a Komodo dragon is reinforced by thousands of tiny bones called osteoderms, meaning skin bones, embedded within the scales. These structures function as a kind of natural chainmail, providing significant protection against injury. Where most lizards have one or two types of osteoderms, the Komodo dragon has 4 distinct types: rosette, platy, dendritic, and vermiform. This variety creates a particularly dense and interlocking armor. The only areas of the head lacking osteoderms are the regions around the eyes, nostrils, mouth margins, and a small light-sensitive spot on the top of the skull called the parietal eye. Fact 20. The parietal eye, that small light-sensitive organ on the top of the Komodo dragon's head, is not capable of forming images in the way that the main eyes are. Instead, it detects light and dark and plays a role in regulating circadian rhythms and hormonal responses linked to basking behavior. It is, in essence, a biological clock sensor built into the skull. Fact 21. Komodo dragons have eyes that can see objects as far away as 985 feet, about 300 meters in good light. Their retinas contain only cone cells, the type of photoreceptors responsible for color vision. This means they can distinguish colors, a relatively unusual trait among reptiles, but have poor vision in dim light when cone cells are ineffective. At night, a Komodo dragon is almost blind, which is one reason it is a diurnal creature, most active in the warm middle hours of the day. Fact 22. Their hearing is limited and in some ways puzzling. Komodo dragons have visible external ear openings, but their hearing range is relatively narrow, roughly between 400 and 2000 Hz. For comparison, humans hear sounds between about 20 and 20,000 Hz. This means a Komodo dragon cannot hear very low-pitched sounds or very high-pitched sounds. It cannot hear a deep voice from across a room. It cannot hear a high-pitched scream. Its auditory world is a narrow band of the broader acoustic universe.
Fact 23. The Komodo dragon's tail is approximately the same length as its entire body. This means that roughly half of a Komodo dragon's total length is pure tail. The tail serves multiple purposes. It is used in combat between males, as a defensive weapon against threats, for balance during movement, and perhaps most surprisingly, as a fat storage organ. Research published in 2024 found that the tail's adipose tissue plays crucial roles in thermoregulation, energy metabolism, and even reproduction, providing reserves that allow the animal to remain reproductively active during seasons when food is scarce. Fact 24. The scales around the dragon's ears, lips, chin, and the soles of its feet contain sensory plaques, tiny structures connected to nerve endings that give the animal a refined sense of touch in these areas. Each of these sensitive scales may contain 3 or more sensory plaques. This means the Komodo dragon experiences tactile sensations through its scales in ways that have no real equivalent in human experience. Fact 25. Adult Komodo dragons are generally a uniform stone gray or reddish-brown color, which serves as extraordinarily effective camouflage in the dry, rocky savanna environments where they spend much of their time.
Young Komodo dragons, by contrast, are strikingly patterned, dark green with yellow and black bands, a coloration that helps them blend into the tree canopies where they spend their vulnerable early years. As they grow and descend permanently to the ground, this vivid color fades into the earth-toned adult livery. Fact 26. Despite their enormous size, Komodo dragons can run at speeds of up to approximately 19 to 20 kilometers per hour, roughly 12 miles per hour, in short bursts. They have been observed walking up to 7 miles per day when active, though they prefer to stay close to home. Males maintain and patrol territories that they regularly traverse, covering up to about 1.2 miles per day in their daily rounds. Fact 27. Komodo dragons are capable swimmers. They have been documented swimming across ocean channels between islands, navigating powerful currents with their muscular bodies. This swimming ability is not merely incidental, it is a crucial part of how the species colonized its current island range and how individual animals occasionally move between island populations, providing some degree of genetic exchange. The body of a Komodo dragon is, in the most precise scientific sense, a masterpiece of ecological design. Every element of its anatomy speaks to a lineage shaped over tens of millions of years by the singular, uncompromising pressure of survival. Now let's look at the world this body inhabits. Part 3. The Islands, a world built for dragons. Picture this. You are standing on the deck of a small boat in the middle of the Sapi Strait, an expanse of warm tropical water in the eastern part of the Indonesian archipelago. To the west, you can see the rocky silhouette of Komodo Island rising from the sea. To the east, Rinca. The water is impossibly blue. The sky is enormous. And somewhere on those brown, scrubby volcanic slopes, somewhere in the dry forest and the golden savanna grass, the dragons are going about their timeless business. Fact 28. Komodo dragons are found in the wild only on a small cluster of islands in Indonesia's Lesser Sunda group, within the province of East Nusa Tenggara. Their current range includes Komodo Island, Rinca Island, Flores Island, Gili Motang, and Gili Dasami. This is one of the smallest ranges of any large carnivore on Earth. Fact 29. The total area of habitat occupied by wild Komodo dragons is roughly equivalent to the state of Rhode Island, the smallest state in the United States. Consider that fact for a moment. The entire range of the largest living lizard on Earth fits comfortably within a geographic area of only about 1,000 square miles. Fact 30. Komodo Island itself is the largest of the dragon's home islands. The greatest number of Komodo dragons in the wild live on Komodo and the neighboring Rinca Island. Rinca has a slightly smaller average dragon size, but a higher population density. Flores, the largest island in the range, and the only substantial one outside the formal protection of Komodo National Park, has dragons that tend to be leaner, with more variable growth patterns, a reflection of the more fragmented and often less prey-rich habitat on that island.
Fact 31. The climate of the Komodo dragon's island home is hot, dry, and seasonal. During the dry season, which runs roughly from April through December, daytime temperatures can climb to 95 degrees Fahrenheit, or 35 degrees Celsius, with humidity reaching 70%. These are harsh conditions by any measure, and the Komodo dragon's physiology and behavior are intimately calibrated to them. Fact 32. The vegetation on these volcanic islands is a patchwork of habitats: dry monsoon forest, tropical savanna, mangrove swamps along the coasts, and in places, more tropical forest in higher elevations. Komodo dragons are found in all of these habitats, but prefer the savanna grasslands and the forested valleys, particularly the lower elevation areas where temperature and prey availability combine most favorably for a large ectotherm. Fact 33. Despite being capable of long-distance movement, including those cross-island swims, Komodo dragons typically exhibit what researchers call high spatial fidelity. This means they tend to stay remarkably close to home. Most individuals rarely venture far from the valleys in which they hatched. Their territories are small by the standards of large carnivores. This attachment to a specific home range is a consistent feature of their behavior across populations. Fact 34. Male Komodo dragons maintain and defend territories through regular patrol routes. A territorial male will scent mark his range using secretions and physical presence, and he actively investigates the edges of neighboring territories. Confrontations between males over territory or access to food or females can be dramatic events involving standing upright on the hind legs and tail, grappling with the forelimbs, and biting. Fact 35. The Komodo dragon is, in the most complete ecological sense, the apex predator of its island home. There are no other large carnivores competing with it for the role. No big cats, no wild dogs in the ecological sense, no crocodilians competing for large prey. The dragon sits at the absolute top of the food chain on these islands, and its presence shapes the entire community of animals around it. The deer, the boar, the smaller lizards, all of them live their lives in awareness, conscious or not, of the dragon. Fact 36. In the Komodo language, the dragons are traditionally called sebe, meaning twins, based on an ancient belief among the Komodo people that humans and dragons share the same spiritual mother, that they are, in a profound cosmological sense, kin. The relationship between the human communities of these islands and their giant lizard neighbors is ancient, complex, and layered with a spiritual significance that purely scientific descriptions inevitably miss. Fact 37. Komodo National Park was established in 1980 by the Indonesian government, primarily to protect the Komodo dragon and its habitat. The park covers approximately 700 square miles, including not just the land area but the surrounding marine environment, a spectacularly rich ecosystem supporting whales, dolphins, sea turtles, sharks, manta rays, and more than 1,000 species of fish. In 1991, Komodo National Park was designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Fact 38. The Dutch colonial government of the Dutch East Indies recognized the need to protect Komodo dragons as early as 1915, nearly a century before their formal listing as an endangered species, and instituted protective measures. After the 1926 Burden expedition demonstrated just how limited the dragon population was, sport hunting was outlawed, and the number of specimens taken for scientific study was tightly restricted. Fact 39. On Padar Island, historically one of the islands within the Komodo dragon's range, the dragon population was wiped out by the 1970s. The cause was the overhunting of the island's deer population by poachers, which eliminated the dragon's primary prey base, causing the dragon population to collapse. This is a cautionary story about how predator populations depend on the integrity of the entire prey ecosystem. You cannot protect the dragon without also protecting the deer. Remarkably, however, the story of Padar Island has a tentative, hopeful postscript. After decades of improved protection, the deer population on Padar recovered, and Komodo dragons were recorded naturally recolonizing the island beginning around 2013. Life, given a chance, fills the space left for it. Fact 40. The volcanic nature of these islands means that Komodo dragons share their home with geological hazards, Earthquakes and volcanic activity are not hypothetical threats, but regular features of this part of the world. These natural hazards, along with the dragon's naturally small range, make the species particularly vulnerable to catastrophic events that would be absorbed without lasting harm by an animal with a wider distribution. Part 4. The Lethal Arsenal. How a Komodo dragon actually kills. For decades, the story told about the Komodo dragon's killing strategy was this: it has a mouth full of rotting bacteria. It bites its prey. The prey runs away. The bacteria cause a fatal infection within a few days. The dragon follows the scent of the dying or dead animal and collects its reward. It was a vivid story. It was repeated in textbooks, in wildlife documentaries, in zoo placards around the world. It was also, as it turns out, largely wrong. Fact 41. The bacteria as venom hypothesis for Komodo dragon prey killing was primarily based on the work of biologist Walter Offenberg, who lived on Komodo Island for 11 months in 1969, conducting an extensive behavioral ecology study. Offenberg proposed that the deadly bacteria in the dragon's saliva, accumulated from feeding on decaying carcasses, were responsible for the eventual deaths of bitten prey animals. This explanation was widely accepted for decades. Fact 42. The hypothesis began to unravel in 2005 when Dr. Brian Fry of the University of Melbourne discovered that the lace monitor, the Komodo dragon's closest living relative, possessed venom glands in its mouth. This discovery led Fry to suspect that Komodo dragons might also be venomous, not merely bacterial toxic. Fact 43. In 2009, Fry and an international team of 28 collaborating scientists published a landmark paper in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences that fundamentally changed the understanding of Komodo dragon predation. Using magnetic resonance imaging, MRI scanning of a preserved Komodo dragon head, the team discovered a compound mandibular venom gland of astonishing complexity, 1 major posterior compartment and 5 smaller anterior compartments, each with its own separate duct opening between the teeth. This was described as the most structurally complex reptile venom gland ever described at that time.
Fact 44. The venom produced in these glands contains a cocktail of toxins that work synergistically with the mechanical damage of the bite to incapacitate prey. Specifically, the venom includes anticoagulant compounds that prevent blood from clotting around wounds, vasodilators that cause blood vessels to widen and blood pressure to drop, and shock-inducing agents. The combined effect is dramatic and rapid hemorrhaging, a severe drop in blood pressure, and physiological shock. In other words, the prey bleeds out faster than it would from the wounds alone and goes into systemic collapse. Fact 45. Rather than injecting venom in the forceful, directed way that a snake does, the Komodo dragon delivers its venom through a specialized behavior that researchers call bite and pull. The dragon clamps down with its serrated teeth, causing deep lacerations, and then pulls back with its powerful neck muscles. This tearing action creates large, gaping wounds. The venom oozes from the ducts between the teeth directly into these wounds during the attack, saturating the damaged tissue. Fact 46. The Komodo dragon's prey becomes notably still and unusually quiet very shortly after being bitten, a behavioral signature that Fry and his colleagues identified as consistent with rapid venom-induced hypotension and shock, not with the gradual onset of bacterial sepsis that the old hypothesis would predict. Bitten prey also bleed profusely from wounds that do not clot, consistent with the anticoagulant properties of the venom. Fact 47. Researcher Brian Fry described the bacteria as venom hypothesis bluntly in a National Geographic interview as a scientific fairy tale.
A subsequent 2013 study analyzing the oral bacteria of 16 captive Komodo dragons found that the bacteria present were not significantly more dangerous than the normal microbial community found in any carnivore's mouth. No single pathogenic species was consistently present in all individuals, making a bacteria-based killing strategy evolutionarily implausible. You cannot rely on an agent that is not reliably there. Fact 48. Water buffalo, which are not native to the Komodo dragon's island range and were introduced by humans relatively recently, represent a genuine edge case in the bacteria debate. Because water buffalo are not natural prey and are much larger than a single dragon can easily subdue, bitten buffalo often escape into standing water, where they may subsequently develop infections from waterborne bacteria in the feces-contaminated water, not from the dragon's saliva. This observation was likely a source of much of the early confusion about the bacteria hypothesis. Fact 49. A Komodo dragon bitten by another Komodo dragon, which happens during territorial and mating battles, appears to be completely unaffected by the venom. Researchers have suspected that the Komodo dragon possesses physiological protections against its own venom, possibly antibodies in its blood. A 2019 genome sequencing study of the Komodo dragon found evidence of positive selection in genes related to hemostasis, the process of stopping bleeding, suggesting that the dragon's genome has been shaped by the selective pressure of needing to be immune to anticoagulant venom. Fact 50. The Komodo dragon's skull, despite being lightweight and relatively weak in terms of pure bite force, is exquisitely designed for the grip, rip, and drip attack strategy. Finite element analysis models showed that the skull handles the pulling and shearing forces of the tearing motion extremely well, even though it would fracture under the kind of sustained compressive bite force that a crocodile uses. The dragon is not built to hold on, it is built to slash and retreat, to let the venom and the wounds do their work.
Fact 51. The specific venom protein profile of the Komodo dragon is similar in some of its activities to that of the Gila monster, one of the few other venomous lizards known to science, and to certain snakes. This pharmacological similarity suggests that venom in lizards and snakes may share an evolutionary history, a finding that has reshaped how scientists think about the evolution of venom in the squamate reptiles, the broad group that includes all lizards and snakes. Fact 52. The saliva of a Komodo dragon is visibly blood-tinged during and after feeding. This is because its teeth are almost entirely covered by gingival tissue, the equivalent of gum tissue that is naturally lacerated when the dragon eats. Every meal tears the gum tissue around the base of the teeth, releasing blood. The dragon's mouth is therefore routinely painted in its own blood, an unsettling visual that early observers likely interpreted as evidence of a pathologically diseased mouth. Another source of the bacteria mythology. There is something almost philosophically interesting about this story, about how a vivid but wrong explanation became scientific orthodoxy for decades, and how the actual truth revealed by MRI scanners and mass spectrometers and careful biochemical analysis turned out to be stranger and in some ways more elegant than the myth. The Komodo dragon doesn't kill with bacteria, it kills with venom, and it has been doing so for millions of years before anyone was there to notice. Part 5. The Art of the Hunt. Patience, precision, and ancient strategy. The Komodo dragon is not what you would call a relentless pursuit predator. It is not a cheetah, burning energy in explosive sprints. It is something older and in its own way more interesting, a creature that has mastered the art of patient strategic predation over millions of years, whose hunting system is built around sensory acuity, behavioral intelligence, and a willingness to wait. Fact 53.
The Komodo dragon's primary sensory system for locating food is not its eyes or its ears, it is its tongue. Specifically, it is the combination of its forked tongue and the organ in the roof of its mouth called the Jacobson's organ, a paired chemosensory structure that analyzes the volatile chemical molecules collected by the tongue with extraordinary precision. Fact 54. As a Komodo dragon moves through its environment, its tongue flickers in and out of its mouth in a continuous rapid motion, sometimes dozens of times per minute. Each flick collects microscopic particles of scent from the air. When the forked tip of the tongue touches the roof of the mouth and contacts the two openings of the Jacobson's organ, the chemical information in those particles is analyzed and translated into a spatial map of the surrounding environment where food is, in what direction, and at what distance. Fact 55. The forked nature of the tongue gives the Komodo dragon a form of stereo-olfaction, a directional sense of smell. If the concentration of scent molecules on the left tip of the tongue is greater than on the right, the dragon knows that the source is to its left. The side-to-side swinging motion of the head as the dragon walks enhances this directional sampling, effectively sweeping a wide arc of olfactory information with each step. This is why you will often see a Komodo dragon walking with its head swinging gently from side to side. It is not aimless, it is reading the air. Fact 56. Komodo dragons can detect the scent of carrion, dead or dying animals from an astonishing distance. Multiple sources, including the Smithsonian's National Zoo and the Denver Zoo, report this distance as approximately 5 miles, around 8 kilometers under favorable wind conditions. Some sources cite a more conservative figure of 4 to 6 kilometers, but the consensus is that the chemosensory system is sensitive enough to detect the molecular signature of decomposition across a vast stretch of terrain.
Fact 57. Komodo dragons have been observed traveling up to 10 kilometers from their home territory in response to a particularly strong scent signal from carrion. For an animal that typically shows strong spatial fidelity and stays close to home, this willingness to range far in pursuit of food demonstrates just how compelling and reliable the olfactory signal is. Fact 58. Komodo dragons are opportunistic feeders, and their daily activity patterns reflect the dual nature of their feeding strategy: active foraging and patient ambushing. Smaller and medium-sized dragons tend to be more active foragers, covering ground in search of prey. Larger, heavier adults, particularly the dominant alpha males, are more likely to employ sit-and-wait ambush tactics, lying concealed along game trails and near water sources where prey animals must eventually come to drink. Fact 59. When hunting by ambush, a Komodo dragon demonstrates a level of camouflage effectiveness that is genuinely surprising for such a large animal. Their gray-brown coloration blends remarkably well with the dry grass and rocky soil of their savanna habitat. A full-grown dragon lying still in tall grass can be nearly invisible until you are dangerously close. This is an animal that has been described by researchers who have worked with them as capable of genuine stealth. Fact 60. The moment of attack, when it comes, is extremely fast for an animal of this size. A Komodo dragon can lunge forward with explosive speed over a short distance, using its powerful legs and its entire body mass to slam into its target. It will aim for vulnerable areas: the throat, the hindquarters, the tendons of the legs. A bite to the Achilles tendon, which the dragon's serrated teeth are well suited to sever, can bring even an animal as large as a water buffalo to the ground. Fact 61. The primary natural prey of the Komodo dragon is the Javan rusa, a medium-sized deer species also known as the Timor deer that is native to the same islands. A deer ambushed and bitten by a Komodo dragon typically begins to weaken and die within a few hours.
The dragon will follow the wounded animal's trail at a patient distance, using its tongue to track the scent of the blood and the physiological changes in the prey's biochemistry that come with shock and deterioration. Fact 62. A kill made by a Komodo dragon is rarely a private affair. The scent of blood and opened gut in the tropical air carries far, and within hours, sometimes within minutes, other Komodo dragons will converge on the scene. A dominance hierarchy determines who eats first. The largest, most dominant male feeds first, and the other dragons wait at varying distances, watching, edging closer, retreating when challenged, until their turn comes. Fact 63. Komodo dragons have been documented displaying something that researchers describe as group hunting behavior, a characteristic unusual enough in reptiles that it has drawn considerable scientific interest. Multiple individuals sometimes coordinate to bring down prey too large for a single dragon, particularly in the case of adult water buffalo. While this coordination is less formalized than the pack hunting of wolves or lions, the behavior represents a degree of social complexity unexpected in a reptile.
Fact 64. The diet of a Komodo dragon is remarkably broad. Adults eat deer, wild pigs, water buffalo, feral goats, macaques, smaller Komodo dragons, birds and their eggs, sea turtle eggs, fish, crabs, and carrion of virtually any kind. They have been documented eating porcupines, quills and all, consuming the entire animal without apparent discomfort. Young dragons eat a diet of insects, smaller lizards, snakes, small birds and eggs. As they grow, the size of their prey grows with them. Fact 65. Komodo dragons have been known to dig up freshly buried human graves and consume the remains. This behavior, unsettling enough in its own right, has historically been significant enough in communities living near dragon habitat that some groups develop burial practices designed to prevent it, including placing heavy stones over graves to deter excavation. Part 6. Feeding, digestion, and the metabolism of an ancient engine. The Komodo dragon's relationship with food is unlike almost anything else in the animal kingdom. The way it eats, the volume it can consume, the efficiency with which it processes a meal, the astonishing length of time it can go without eating at all. All of these things speak to a digestive and metabolic system that has been refined over tens of millions of years into something almost alien by human standards. Fact 66. A Komodo dragon can consume up to 80% of its own body weight in a single meal. For an adult male weighing 80 kilograms, this means eating up to 64 kilograms of food in one sitting, roughly 140 pounds. This is approximately equivalent to a 180-pound human being consuming 144 pounds of food at one meal. It is by any reasonable measure one of the most extraordinary single meal capacities of any vertebrate animal on Earth. Fact 67. The Komodo dragon's stomach expands to accommodate these enormous meals through a combination of elastic stomach walls and a skeletal structure with movable joints in the jaw and skull that allows the mouth to open to a degree that would be anatomically impossible in most other animals. For smaller prey, animals up to the size of a goat, the dragon can swallow the entire animal whole, working the prey down its throat over a process that can take 15 to 20 minutes. Fact 68. When swallowing large prey whole, a Komodo dragon has been observed using a remarkable strategy. It will ram the carcass against a nearby tree trunk to force it down its throat, using the tree as a tool for leverage. This behavior has been documented ramming hard enough that the tree itself was knocked over, a lizard that uses trees as swallowing aids. The natural world is endlessly inventive. Fact 69.
A small breathing tube runs beneath the tongue and connects directly to the lungs, allowing the Komodo dragon to continue breathing normally while swallowing. A vital adaptation when the meal being consumed can take many minutes to work its way down the throat and would otherwise completely block the airway. Fact 70. Digestion in a Komodo dragon requires the body to be maintained at its optimal temperature of around 34 to 35 degrees Celsius. After consuming a large meal, the dragon will drag itself visibly distended to a sunny location and lie still for extended periods, basking to accelerate the digestive process. Digestion in optimal thermal conditions takes approximately 26 hours. If the body temperature drops significantly and digestion slows, the food can begin to rot inside the stomach, potentially poisoning the dragon.
Fact 71. The Komodo dragon is an extraordinarily efficient consumer of its prey. Researchers estimate that it leaves behind only about 12% of a prey animal's biomass after eating, consuming not just flesh but bones, hooves, horns, and sections of hide. The stomach acid of a Komodo dragon is highly concentrated and capable of dissolving materials that would be indigestible for most other carnivores. Reuters once described Komodo dragon table manners as appalling, but noted that they at least finish their dinners, bones, hooves, and all. Fact 72. The Komodo dragon does produce gastric pellets, compressed masses of indigestible material like hair, scales, and plant material found in prey stomachs, which are regurgitated after the digestible components have been extracted. Examining these pellets has been an important tool for researchers studying the dragon's diet in the wild. Fact 73. One of the most remarkable facts about Komodo dragon metabolism is how little food they actually need relative to their size. A 100-pound Komodo dragon requires only about 30 pounds of meat per month. By comparison, a large cat or wolf of similar weight requires approximately 300 pounds per month, 10 times as much. This extraordinary metabolic efficiency is one of the key reasons the Komodo dragon has been able to survive on islands that could not support comparably sized warm-blooded predators. Fact 74. After consuming a large meal, a Komodo dragon can go for an extended period without eating again. A single large prey animal can sustain an adult dragon for up to a month. During periods of food scarcity, the dragon's metabolic rate drops further, drawing on fat reserves stored in the tail and body. This metabolic flexibility, the ability to ramp up during abundance and dial down during scarcity, is a fundamental feature of the ectothermic body plan. Fact 75. When threatened or cornered, a Komodo dragon can deliberately vomit the contents of its stomach. This reduces its body weight significantly and allows the animal to flee more quickly from a perceived threat. A dragon that has just consumed a meal amounting to 60% of its body weight and then needs to escape a threat can regurgitate that meal and become dramatically lighter and more mobile in seconds. It is a grotesque strategy, but an effective one. Fact 76. Cannibalism is a regular and ecologically significant feature of Komodo dragon society. Adults eat juveniles, and juvenile dragons respond to this threat with a behavioral adaptation that we will discuss fully in the next section. It is estimated that cannibalism accounts for approximately 10% of adult Komodo dragons' diet in some populations. This is not aberrant behavior, it is a normal part of the species ecology, regulating population density and providing a consistent food source for large adults in environments where prey can be unpredictable. Part 7. The Miracle of Reproduction, Virgin Births and the Dragon's Legacy. The Komodo dragon's reproductive biology is, in the most measured scientific language available, extraordinary. It involves combat, coercion, deception, and a phenomenon that would have seemed like pure science fiction had it not been documented in peer-reviewed journals published in some of the world's most prestigious scientific outlets. Fact 77. Mating season for Komodo dragons runs roughly from May through August. During this period, male dragons seek out females using the same chemosensory apparatus they use for hunting, following the unique chemical signature of a receptive female as detected through tongue sampling. Once a male finds a female, he will scratch her back with his claws and lick her body, reading her hormonal state through the chemical information left on her skin. Fact 78. Males do not simply court females, they must compete for them, often violently. When two male Komodo dragons encounter each other during breeding season, they may engage in ritualized combat that involves rearing upright on their hind legs and tail, grappling with their forelimbs, and attempting to wrestle each other to the ground. These bouts are intense enough that both animals sustain injuries. The winner earns the right to mate. The loser retreats. Fact 79. A successful male will spend several days near the female after mating, guarding her from rival males and attempting to mate with her multiple times. Females do not breed every year. They take time off between reproductive events to recover from the significant energetic costs of egg production. Fact 80. About 5 weeks after mating, in September, the female lays her clutch of eggs. A clutch typically contains between 15 and 30 eggs, though this varies with the female's age and body size. The eggs are approximately the size of grapefruits and are deposited in holes excavated in warm, moist soil or in large mound nests built by orange-footed scrubfowl, birds that construct enormous incubation mounds of decomposing vegetation. Komodo dragon females are adept at stealing and repurposing these ready-made incubators.
Fact 81. Female Komodo dragons often dig multiple decoy nest chambers near the real nest, a deceptive strategy that discourages egg stealing by other dragons, including dominant males. The false nests appear indistinguishable from the real one to a casual excavator, spreading the risk of predation across multiple locations. This is a level of anticipatory behavioral deception that is rarely discussed in the context of reptile intelligence. Fact 82. A female Komodo dragon guards her nest and eggs for the first few months after laying. This maternal behavior is unusual among large reptiles and represents a significant investment of energy and risk. She will remain near the nest, fasting and protecting, until the eggs hatch. Fact 83. The incubation period for Komodo dragon eggs lasts approximately 7 to 8 months. The eggs hatch in April, timed to coincide with the peak abundance of insects, the primary food source of hatchling dragons. Newly hatched Komodo dragons are about 30 centimeters, roughly 12 inches long, and weigh around 100 grams, or about 3.5 ounces. They are at this stage about as vulnerable as any animal on Earth. Fact 84. The moment a Komodo dragon hatches, it faces an immediate existential threat, being eaten by an adult Komodo dragon. The hatchling's response is immediate and instinctive. They sprint from the nest directly to the nearest climbable tree. Young Komodo dragons are agile climbers, using their sharp claws to ascend trees that adult dragons too large and heavy to climb cannot follow. They will live in the trees for approximately the first 8 months of their lives, spending their days in the canopy and descending only briefly to feed on insects, small lizards, and birds. Fact 85. To further reduce the risk of being eaten by adults, young Komodo dragons have developed a behavioral adaptation that is both clever and unpleasant. They roll in fecal matter, dragon excrement, to mask their own scent and make themselves smell like something an adult dragon would not want to eat.
Whether this strategy is fully effective is debated, but it represents an extraordinary evolutionary response to the pressure of intraspecies predation. Fact 86. Young Komodo dragons grow extremely rapidly in their first few years. During the first 3 years of life, they can gain up to approximately 60 centimeters, about 2 feet per year. Growth slows significantly as they approach sexual maturity. Dragons typically reach sexual maturity at around 8 to 9 years of age, and most individuals reach their final adult size between 8 and 10 years. Now we arrive at the most remarkable aspect of Komodo dragon reproduction, a finding that, when it was published in the scientific journal Nature in December 2006, caused something close to astonishment in the biological research community.
Fact 87. Female Komodo dragons are capable of reproducing asexually through a process called parthenogenesis, the development of an unfertilized egg into a viable offspring without any genetic contribution from a male. This ability, documented in 2 female dragons at English zoos, means that a single female Komodo dragon, isolated from any male, can produce offspring entirely on her own. Fact 88. The first 2 documented cases of Komodo dragon parthenogenesis involved a female named Flora at Chester Zoo and a female named Sungai at the London Zoo, both in 2006. Flora had never been in contact with a male. Sungai had not mated in over 2.5 years. Both produced viable eggs. Genetic fingerprinting confirmed conclusively that the offspring had no father. They carried only maternal DNA. The study was published in Nature by Watts and colleagues and created worldwide attention. Fact 89. Parthenogenesis in vertebrate animals is exceptionally rare. It has been documented in only about 70 vertebrate species, which represents approximately 0.1% of all vertebrate species on Earth. The ability to reproduce both sexually and asexually, what researchers call facultative parthenogenesis, is rarer still, and its demonstration in Komodo dragons was described at the time as a genuine world first for the species. Fact 90. The mechanism behind Komodo dragon parthenogenesis involves a structure called the polar body. In normal egg production, a developing egg cell produces a polar body, a smaller copy of the egg, containing a duplicate set of the egg's chromosomes, which normally withers and disappears. In parthenogenesis, this polar body instead fuses back with the egg, effectively providing the genetic contribution that sperm would normally supply, resulting in a full complement of chromosomes and a viable embryo. Fact 91. Komodo dragons use a sex determination system that is the reverse of the one used by humans and most mammals. In humans, females are XX and males are XY. In Komodo dragons, females carry 2 different sex chromosomes, designated BUDU and Z, making them BUDU-Z, while males carry 2 identical chromosomes and are Z. When a female reproduces parthenogenetically, the doubling of her egg's chromosomes produces embryos that are either WW or Z. WW is a non-viable combination. These embryos do not develop, but Z produces perfectly healthy, viable male offspring. This means that all offspring produced by Komodo dragon parthenogenesis are male, every single time without exception. Fact 92. This biological feature of Komodo dragon parthenogenesis has a remarkable evolutionary logic. A single female, swept by a storm to a new unpopulated island, could reproduce parthenogenetically to produce male offspring, and then subsequently mate with those male offspring to establish a sexually reproducing population. Within a single generation, a lone female can seed an entire new island population.
Scientists believe this may explain how Komodo dragons colonized some of their island habitats in the past. Fact 93. The discovery of parthenogenesis in captive Komodo dragons created important practical concerns for zoo conservation programs. Most zoos traditionally kept only female Komodo dragons, bringing in males only when deliberately attempting to breed them. But if the absence of males triggers parthenogenetic reproduction, zoos may inadvertently be producing exclusively male offspring through virgin birth, reducing genetic diversity and complicating breeding program goals. The recommendation that emerged from the research was to keep male and female dragons together in captivity to prevent parthenogenesis and maintain sexual reproduction. Part 8. Intelligence, behavior, and the interior life of a dragon. The Komodo dragon is not what most people imagine when they think of an intelligent animal. It doesn't perform tricks. It doesn't seem to recognize its name. It is not warm-blooded and gregarious in the way that mammals are. And yet, people who have spent significant time working with Komodo dragons, zookeepers, field researchers, conservation biologists, consistently describe the animal as more complex, more aware, more individually distinctive than any reptile has any business being. Fact 94. James Murphy, a Komodo dragon expert and research associate at the Smithsonian's National Zoological Park in Washington, D.C., has stated explicitly that Komodo dragons are not simply large reptiles with tiny brains. Having worked with 10 adult Komodo dragons, Murphy described them as genuinely intelligent animals. Zookeepers who interact daily with individual dragons report distinct individual personalities, some curious and relatively calm with familiar handlers, others consistently aggressive or cautious. Individual recognition of specific humans by name or appearance has been anecdotally reported. Fact 95. Komodo dragons communicate through a repertoire of physical signals and behaviors: tail lashing and quivering signals, agitation or threat, gular inflation, puffing up the throat pouch is used in displays of dominance or threat, an arched back, open mouth displaying the teeth, and a loud hiss communicate serious warning. These displays function both in territorial confrontation between males and in prey deterrent situations, and they are read and responded to appropriately by other dragons in the vicinity. Fact 96. The dominance hierarchy among Komodo dragons at a shared food resource is strictly observed. When multiple dragons converge on a single kill, they eat in order of size and social rank. The largest, most dominant individual feeds first. Subordinate animals wait at a careful distance, making exploratory advances and retreating when challenged, reading the body language of the dominant animal with what appears to be genuine social intelligence. Challenges to the feeding order do occur and can result in serious injuries, but typically the hierarchy channels aggression into display rather than escalating to damaging contact. Fact 97. Thermoregulation, the management of body temperature through behavioral means, is a central organizing principle of the Komodo dragon's daily life. As an ectotherm, it cannot generate its own body heat and must manage its temperature through its behavior. Research using radio transmitters placed inside the animals showed that all Komodo dragons, regardless of body size, maintained a preferred active body temperature of between 34 and 35.6 degrees Celsius during their daily activity window. They achieve this by cycling between sun and shade across the day, retreating to burrows in the middle of the day when ambient temperatures peak, and basking in the morning to warm up to operating temperature. Fact 98. Komodo dragons dig and maintain burrows within their home ranges. These burrows, excavated in soil banks, hillsides, or other suitable substrates, serve multiple functions. They provide thermal refuge during the heat of the day, shelter at night when the temperature drops, and nesting sites for females. Because of their large body size, Komodo dragons cool down very slowly once warmed. They have what is called high thermal inertia. This means that a dragon that has reached its preferred body temperature during the day retains that warmth well into the evening, sleeping in its burrow and minimizing the amount of morning basking needed to reach operating temperature the following day. Fact 99. The Komodo dragon drinks water in a striking way by immersing its snout up to the eyes in a water source, sucking up water, then raising its head and allowing gravity to carry the water down its throat, much as a snake drinks. Most Komodo dragons manage without access to free water from approximately April through December, the long dry season, obtaining the moisture they need primarily from the blood and body fluids of their prey. When water sources dry up entirely, the ability to survive on metabolic water alone is a crucial survival adaptation. Fact 100. Adult Komodo dragons are solitary animals for most of the year, coming together only to breed and to share large food resources. Yet they are not as social in the sense of being unaware of or unresponsive to conspecifics. They occupy overlapping ranges, they read each other's scent marks, they observe hierarchies. The social life of a Komodo dragon is not the rich bonded life of a wolf pack or an elephant family, but it is not nothing either. It is a quiet, chemical, physically expressed social life played out in the flickering of tongues and the alignment of bodies in a hot island landscape under the same sun that has been falling on this species for nearly 4 million years. Before we truly let the dragons rest for the night, there are a few more extraordinary truths about this species that deserve a moment of quiet attention. These are the facts that didn't fit neatly into any earlier chapter, but that are each remarkable enough to carry their own weight. Consider the fact that in the wild, there are roughly 4 times as many male Komodo dragons as females. This ratio is unusual for a large vertebrate and has implications for population genetics, breeding competition, and the balance of social dynamics within any given population. The reasons for this imbalance are not entirely understood. It may relate to differential survival rates, differences in detectability during surveys, or aspects of the dragon's reproductive biology that are still being clarified. Consider the fact that Komodo dragons have been documented attacking animals far larger than themselves, including adult horses. Their strategy in these cases is not one of overwhelming force but of attrition, a bite to a vulnerable area, the injection of venom, and then the patient, relentless tracking of the wounded animal over whatever distance and time it takes for the venom and blood loss to do their work. The dragon has time, the horse does not. Consider the fact that Komodo dragon attacks on humans are rare but documented. According to data from Komodo National Park, covering a 38-year period between 1974 and 2012, there were 24 reported attacks on humans, 5 of which were fatal. Most victims were local villagers living near the park. The dragons generally avoid humans and will flee when approached, particularly the young, which will sprint away from a human at distances of up to 100 meters. Older, larger dragons retreat at shorter distances. Attacks typically occur when a dragon is surprised, cornered, or, disturbingly, when it has become habituated to being fed by humans and has lost its natural wariness. Consider the fact that the first attempts to keep Komodo dragons alive in Western zoos were largely unsuccessful. When the Bronx Zoo in New York exhibited a pair in September 1926, they died within 2 months. The first London Zoo dragons in 1927 fared only marginally better. For decades, the average captive lifespan was only about 5 years. It was only through careful study, including the 11-month field study conducted by biologist Walter Offenberg on Komodo Island in 1969, that scientists developed enough understanding of the dragon's behavioral and physiological needs to reliably keep them alive and eventually breed them in captivity. Consider the fact that Komodo dragon scales contain sensory information in ways we are still discovering. While the armor of osteoderms is their most conspicuous structural feature,
the variation in sensory plaque density across different body regions, the lips, the chin, the soles of the feet, suggests a tactile map of the body that is tuned to the specific demands of feeding, social interaction, and substrate navigation. The dragon experiences its world in part through touch, in ways that science is only beginning to characterize. Consider the fact that a Komodo dragon's digestive system leaves behind a regurgitated pellet of compressed hair, teeth, and other undigestible materials after each large meal, similar in structure to the pellets produced by owls when they regurgitate the bones and fur of their prey. Analyzing these pellets has been one of the primary tools researchers use to study the dietary composition of wild dragon populations without needing to observe feeding directly, which is often impossible given the secretive nature of dragon behavior in the wild. Consider the fact that the Komodo dragon's body temperature follows a precise daily cycle tied to its behavior. Body temperature transmitters placed inside free-ranging dragons showed that they reached their lowest body temperatures between 6 and 7 in the morning before they had begun to bask, and their highest in the mid-afternoon, after several hours of solar warming. By evening, they have retreated to burrows, and through the night their body temperature drops steadily until morning. This daily thermal cycle is the heartbeat of the dragon's existence. Everything it does is organized around maintaining the right temperature at the right time. Consider the fact that the Komodo dragon genome is one of only a handful of large complex reptile genomes to be sequenced at high resolution, and that its sequencing in 2019 provided scientific insights extending well beyond the dragon itself. The comparative genomics data, comparing the Komodo dragon's genome to those of related species, has helped researchers understand the evolution of venomous lizards, the genetics of chemosensory systems in squamate reptiles, and the molecular basis of some of the unusual cardiovascular adaptations that make monitor lizards such exceptional athletes among ectotherms. Consider the fact that the Komodo dragon is listed on CITES Appendix 1, the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species, most restrictive category, meaning commercial international trade in live specimens or any parts of the animal, dead or alive, is strictly prohibited. This protection covers even shed scales, which might otherwise be collected by poachers. Indonesia reinforces this with its own national protected species designation, and the dragon is also covered by presidential decree as a national symbol.
And finally, consider the fact that the Komodo dragon is the only large predator on Earth that kills primarily through a combination of mechanical laceration and venom-induced anticoagulation, not through crushing force, not through suffocation, not through shock trauma from sheer impact, but through an elegant, ancient, chemically sophisticated system that turns the prey's own blood against it. In a kingdom of predators that has explored almost every conceivable way of killing, the Komodo dragon has settled on something that is simultaneously one of the oldest and one of the most pharmacologically sophisticated approaches in nature. This is an animal that does not need to be what we imagined it to be in order to be extraordinary. It is more interesting, more complex, and more worthy of our attention than any myth could make it.